Look, y'all, there is a reason I've been carrying this since I was a buck private in the Army for a long, long time. This is something that should be part of your everyday carry. Hey, y'all, Billy from Perma Pastures Farm. Look here, this is another pig. This is the last of the ones we're pulling off the side of this mountain. Before I get going, I just want to remind you, if you want to know how I'm going to do what I'm going to do, we got a butchery classes coming up. We're going to scald one and we're going to skin one, and that's going to be happening in the end of April. First week in March. Details are all down below. This here is a Leatherman rebar. I'm going to essentially process this entire animal with nothing but this, and of course a honing steel. They make smaller ones I could do, but I don't have one that can fit in your pocket. And basically a bone saw. And the reason I'm using a bone saw is because, to my knowledge, Leatherman has not yet made they haven't made a tool that has a bone saw on it or an attachment. Now they do make one version of it that I understand you could put a sawzall blade in, but I don't have that. Right here, this Leatherman rebar is what I have, and that's exactly what I'm going to use. Now, let me just say this right off. If I wanted, I could basically debone this entire thing. But this pig is for my best friend. And I'm not just gonna, give him all boneless stuff, because he's gonna be wondering where his ribs are, and he's gonna be wondering where his St. Louis ribs are. He's gonna be wondering a whole lot of stuff. But essentially, it's all going to be done with this. I've been wanting to do this video forever and a day, and I'm gonna show you how it gets done. So if you ever had to process something in the wild, and all you had essentially was what you have on your hip, you could have this, or maybe a folding bone saw. You could get through it no problem. But let's just see what I can do with this. All right, it's the next day, and we basically took that pig and cut it down into primals with nothing more than a Leatherman multi-tool. And this one here is a Leatherman rebar. This is actually Williams. The one I use is a wave. At this point, this is where we get down to the nitty-gritty, where before we can call it almost meatball butchery, where we take the whole animal and we break it into primal cuts. Right here we got a ham, and over here is a sirloin. And when you saw me working it outside, I basically took that bone out of the sirloin. But this is where we get into more detailed cuts, and we're going to see just how well it works. Now, I got these other things in here just to show you ordinarily what I would normally use. We'd have a 10-inch, and these are German knives that we're testing out. And then we have a 6-inch boning knife where it's a little bit flexible. This one's not quite as flexible. It's perfectly flexible for working with pigs, but not necessarily other things. Okay, so I'm going to take everything and I'm going to put it away at this point. And I also want to caution you, a word of caution. You see me wear gloves a lot, and there's a reason for that. Two reasons, really. Number one is when you're messing with cold meat, believe it or not, it'll zap the warmth right out of you. Number two is that it does at least provide a little bit of cut resistance. So ordinarily, I would take some MaxiFlex gloves, stick them under these, and then stick these on top. But we're in the kitchen and it's not a big deal. So far, in cutting this thing down into primals where I'm all up in the bone and everything else, this thing has needed nothing more but a little bit of honing, and that is it. It maintains its edge, believe it or not, better than just about every single butcher knife that I've done that I've used so far. But here's where we get down to the nitty-gritty, because it's more precise work. So we're just going to go ahead and start with that sirloin, and we'll see how we go. All right, this is the sirloin on that pig. You really got a couple of choices here. You can leave it as an entire roast, or you can cut it into steaks. But to really find out the full extent of what this thing will do, I'm going to cut it into steaks. But first, we got a ring of back fat on here, which is perfectly fine. This is a matter of preference for you. But I want to see how this thing does when I remove just a little bit of the back fat. So we'll just go ahead and use it. I did not even hone this thing yet, and look at this already. It's doing a fantastic job. I'm just going to take off a little bit of that. Remember, when you do butchery, y'all, small cuts, small mistakes. And like I said, if you want to see how to do this and learn it, we have a class coming up. Details down below, and it's going to be the last class we do this year. So I have a little more experience than most, but if you needed to take this off in multiple strips, that'd be perfectly fine. So we're going to take this and put that in our fat bucket. We'll render that later. Now, here's where we're going to possibly get into a little bit of difficulty. Ordinarily, I'd want to take and use maybe my 10-inch, in some cases maybe my 6-inch. But as you can see, there's a big difference in the length here. But we're going to see just how we get through it. So I'm going to cut some steaks out of this, and it's going to take a few swipes. So let's just see how we do. So we're going to make some sirloin, and I would ordinarily like the meat set up a little bit better than this. So we're not going to saw, we're just going to hold it there and get our knife all the way through. And so what's that, 4 cuts? Look at that. Perfect steak right off this sirloin. How cool is that? This ham, most people, there's so many different options of what you could do here. Now, where there's, where there's blood meat or where there's dirt or whatever that got on it, because we're not doing it in the most perfect environment. Here's what I want to find out, is that we got a bone, we got a femur going right down through the middle of this. Now, if you want a whole ham and you want it cured, yeah, there's other methods we can go about doing that, but that's not what I want. In this particular case, the folks I'm doing this for, they don't want an entire ham. What they're going to want is either ham roasts or take down some major cuts and turn it into ham steaks. Either way, unless I want to get this thing about frozen and put it on a slicer, it's not going to work that way. So we're going to break it down into individual muscle groups. I'm going to see how well this does getting this bone out of here. So we've talked about the instructional part of it, and we're going to see just how this thing holds up doing this sort of thing. Ordinarily, this would be the knife I'd be using, and I would make it look pretty doggone clean that way, but we'll see how it does with a Leatherman. Okay, so we got the bone out of here. We'll clean this off, but this is about, being in something of a rush. This is about as good as I could ever hope to get. Not at all dissatisfied. So we'll stick this off to the side, and then I'll see how well it does breaking this thing down into different groups. And this is completely up to me or your butcher. Got a little kneecap in there I need to get out. This is ordinarily something I'd be doing with my 6-inch. I'm not worried so much about telling you what these cuts are right now. It's really not important. We're seeing how the performance of this tool works. All right, with nothing more than honing thus far, been able to make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 ham roasts. Now, because they are ham roasts, you can also turn these things into steaks if you want. This meat still isn't quite set up as solid as I'd like, so it's even a better test doing it this way. So bam, there you go. Ham steak right there. The ideal with homestead butchery is to get as many meals as possible. Now, we're gonna get into the thing everybody loves. This is the Boston butt. And this sucker is heavy. Let's get it over here. The Boston butt attaches to what's called the picnic ham, which is basically this part of the pig. So, it gave me a little bit of a fit separating this, and we cut everything on joints. We don't use saws to cut things when we got joints. So this is really simple. All I'm going to do is remove the copa, which is the top part of it, which is, I'll spin it around. Basically this part here, I'll take that copa out and I'll make steaks of it, and then the rest of it, we're going to quarter it because, like I said, it's a small family, really simple, but this is really nothing more than separating out the copa and then cutting this thing into quarters to give them some pretty good Boston butt to make pulled pork, which everybody with any sense loves. See, one advantage of having a longer knife at this point is that we have a shoulder blade up in here, and the shoulder blade is shaped like this, basically. No matter the animal, it's even shaped that way in you. Okay, so the problem is with the 10-inch, I can go all the way down there and get all the way through with a solid cut and then follow it with my bone saw. That's going to be a disadvantage, I can tell you that right off. So let's just see, right here's the cap of that shoulder blade. So I'm just going to run this thing down till I hit the blade. And it helps that this meat we're really, really cold at this point. So I'm going to separate it a little bit, cut it a little bit more. Now I'm running my knife directly across that shoulder blade. And once again, if I didn't mention already, it would be absolute sacrilege to remove that bone if you're going to make pulled pork out of it. So this is where I'm going to go back to my bone saw. Now keep in mind, if I had to, I could absolutely get that bone out of there with nothing but this. But this is for someone, so we're going to do what they want and not just do what's wonderful for the video. There we go. Use our saw to cut bone. Now let's see if our knife gets all the way, and this is where it's kind of handy. I can get in there, do my butcher's cut, got it plumb back to the table. See, I missed a little bit of bone there. I'll just come on the other side of it and just finish this part up with the saw. And then I'll follow it with my knife. And like I said, that's cool, man. I can sit here and do a butcher's grip on this thing. And there we go. We got, wow. You can even see that bone, the one I was talking about, the way it's shaped. Some people want to make pork steaks out of this. There's your bone right there. So we're just going to make 2 different Boston butts that they can do and, you know, smoke the way they want. All right, y'all. This is impressive. So here's part of the loin that would have been a bone-in loin. This would be the boneless loin. And in here, I just want to cover this briefly because it's really no reason to film it. Right here is the picnic ham. Nearly everybody is going to turn this into grind. And there's some options in here if you wanted to do other steaks. But here's our grind pile over here, and it ain't very filled. So we're going to use that for grind. We've already proven that we can clear a bone with this Leatherman. And now all we have to do, I'll go ahead and take it off this back one here. We'll just put these off to the side. Is literally cut all of this into boneless pork chops. All with a Leatherman. And I gotta say, I like the feel of it. I've gotten to the point now where at first I was like a pig on roller skates, but I'm really liking the way this feels now. If you told me I had to gut and skin, that part I already know I can do completely adequately with a Leatherman. I could do every bit of it. The part I didn't know, and I just found out today, is can I do some high-end butchery with this Leatherman? And I gotta say, y'all, this is looking quite good. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut this up. And there's other parts that we've already done that I didn't talk about. We've already done the shanks. We already got those off. Every bit of it. The only thing that I would need to absolutely do everything, not on a pig, but anything you can think of, the only thing I'm actually going to need is some way to get through bone from a handheld device. So we'll go ahead and get the rest of this cut up, and we'll lay it out for you. All right, so here's the tail of the tape. This is half a pig, and in no way does this represent all of it, because we have a bus tub full of back fat. We have leaf lard that's not in here. We also have a bus tub that's about 3/4 of the way with grind. Now, time-wise, to do the first part you saw outside took exactly 30 minutes. If I didn't get caught up on the shoulder, it would have taken 25. To do all the rest of this took 2 hours. Keep in mind also that we were filming, so the only aid besides this Leatherman here was this honing steel, and to get through bone we had this, and we've already talked about those issues. So let's talk about the cuts we were able to achieve. And honestly, it would not be much better if I used butcher knives, just faster, just a little bit faster. So we got a Boston butt, it was cut in half. Obviously made possible by this and also the bone saw. This is pork chops, all boneless on one side. That is one magnificent tenderloin. How about that? These are copa steaks. This is that capicola or gabagool if you like. These down here are basically your shanks. Now you can leave them if you want, or you can go ahead and take the meat off of them and add them to the grind pile. Knowing who I'm cutting this for, that's likely what's going to happen, but that's an option. These are your St. Louis style ribs. Not worried about getting them perfectly square because this is for home use, and of course the membrane was moved. Over here are your sirloin steaks. Beautiful. These are your baby backs. So we do it this way so we get another meal out of it. So we leave the baby backs and we take them off, and these are real beautiful meaty baby backs. Down here we have, okay, this is your ham, and I'll put it all on this side so you can see it. These are ham roasts, okay? I could even cut that one in half if I wanted to. And these are ham steaks that are absolutely workable. I mean, it's not one giant ham steak. We could even turn all of these cuts into ham steaks if we so desired. All right, so with the benefit of hindsight, what's my conclusion on this? Look, y'all, there is a reason I've been carrying this since I was a buck private in the Army for a long, long time. This is a fantastic tool, and this is something that should be part of your everyday carry. In fact, for me, it's right here on my hip. I got a regular knife, and then I got a Leatherman that's also included in here. Part of my everyday carry. So if you ever found yourself in a bind where you had to go out there and process animals with nothing more than a Leatherman, absolutely fine. Because if I found myself in that kind of bind, I'm not really caring whether or not I left the bone in on a Boston butt, okay? This is a fantastic tool. I highly recommend it. So 2 things I want you to take away from here. First of all, something I've already mentioned maybe 3 times in this video, carry a doggone multi-tool. And I'll be straight with you, I'm not a big fan of Gerber, never have been. You couldn't give me one. Leatherman, I've had them forever and a day, and they're fantastic, and their knife on there is really, really awesome. Okay, in addition to that, what else I want you to take away from it, in this world where it seems like certain homestead channels right now are selling a whole lot of fear without giving you solutions, you just learned one today. I can gut, skin, everything with this device, and then I can turn it into highfalutin cuts that most people would never see if you brought them to a real deal processor, okay? Some of which are right here, these copa steaks and these ham steaks. You're never gonna see it that way from a processor. In fact, you're not even guaranteed you'll get all of your own animal back. Look, y'all, this is Billy from Perma Pastures Farm, where permaculture is my passion and so is preparedness, and this is one of the things I use for it. We'll see you next time.